G'day, it's Fran Davidson from psychicandenergywork.com.au, and this is part one of my monthly observations for August 2025. Part one always looks at the month that just was, in this case obviously July. One of the reasons why I produce this little video is that often when we're just starting a new period, we're still of course recalibrating as a result of what we've just been in. So often at the start of the month, people can still be digesting what that previous period brought. July, as I mentioned in my monthly update for last month, brought a whole lot of passive numbers, and passive numbers can encourage people to just observe, sit, make the space to process, to digest, to actually just work out what's going on and where you need to be next. Passive numbers are also therefore very good, and therefore passive phases. When I say passive numbers, it's not just hello, there's a passive number, but a phase that carries more passive numbers than not, which I profiled in last month's monthly update. You can see it on YouTube or via the website. These periods can ask us to just review, to consolidate, to have a good audit of what we're doing. They can force us to do those things. And in that sense, this video, which is also about last month, wants to look at the 5 in this year's birth number. The birth number is always the number that a period or a person was born at. So when we're talking about the year, the birth number is 2025, which reduces to 9. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5. So 5 in this year's birth chart, the fact that it's just a 5, it's just one number, right? But if we place it into a bigger context, it is the 5 moment in the phase that is 2020. In other words, the phase that carries the birth number, or the part of the birth number that reads 202. And of course, that began in 2020. It will finish at the end of 2029. So even though we're in this phase called 2020, or this decade called 2020, the fact that we're in a 5-year makes it very, very different. Why? Because 5 is a very active number. It can feel, therefore, very, very busy. 5 can feel sometimes like a boot camp. In other words, hello, welcome. You didn't even sign up for this course, but now you're in it. The doors have been locked and closed. You just have to cope with the fact that it's one thing after another pushing you, poking you, stretching you. Not necessarily all of your own making. Of course, life is very much an interaction and therefore interaction-based. But 5 is a period that can feel very out of control. It can test self's perceptual limits. Now, that's a really interesting statement, because 5, in a sense, initially presents in a way that can see a person defaulting into pessimistic or negative narratives. In other words, I don't think I can cope with this. Life's bad. I'm stuck. Life is imploding. I am imploding. Even others are imploding. So 5 can be very full on. In the active number scale, numerologically, 5s and 8s, they're probably the busiest, as in the most loudly or obviously busy. So the fact that we have 5 in this year's chart, 2025, is going to be magnified if your birth chart arising out of your birth date or your birth name, or the sum of those two things. If your chart also carries 5s, then the 5 experience this year is likely to be even louder. So why do I talk about these things? Because we are just over the halfway point for the year. Obviously we're a month over, because the halfway point was June 30 and July 1st. But still at this moment, you could say numerologically, because we're sort of still at that halfway crossing over, that point always, I find, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a day, an hour, a year, a lifetime. When you get to the halfway point of a period, As you start to move further and further away from that middle point, as in, I've done that, the middle point has passed, often there can be a sense of, I'm getting the hang of this now. Things are starting to feel more solid. I'm starting to make more sense of it. Yeah, there's more clarity. Even if life is still pushing or pulling or whatever it's doing, yeah, that midway point can see a shift in a way that, again, I'm getting the hang of it. In other words, I'm moving more and more into, I can do this, I can live with this, I can run at this pace. Not necessarily forever, but I'm starting to sense the value in it. I'm starting to move out of just the whirlpool of experience that I've been in. And that word whirlpool is very appropriate for a 5 period, because 5 is, again, very, very busy. 5 in itself can mean change, therefore growth. And yes, all right, we can talk about growth in a physical or a mental, emotional sense. And of course, there's nothing wrong with those levels at all. But spiritually, any number always speaks of the more growth that it is about to introduce for us. And that is why on one level, 5 can feel especially stretching. So if I come back to this year's birth number, 2025, which reduces to 9, what that's telling us is that the 202, people stuff, then silence, then people stuff again. Another way to say that, 2022 202, yeah, is busyness as experienced through or with or via the outside world. On a physical level, yeah, right, verbal, yeah, emotional, mental, even energetic, yeah. So 2 is the world of other and everything that can bring. Yeah, 2 is also the world of positioning, my positioning, your positioning, other people's positioning, whether that be world leaders and therefore the influence they have on everything that's going on, yeah, or whether it just be the individual within his or her or even their own mind, their own perceptual or model frameworks. Yeah. So 2025 speaks of those things, but then the 5 says it's time to stretch. It is actually time to grow, to evolve in a way that the universe, again, has sort of ushered you subtly into a room and bolted the doors on you in a way that you can't escape. All for our own good. In other words, not just for your good, everybody's good. So 5 isn't always about, shall we say, winning. No period is, hey. But 5 is a period that is about getting to universal balance, the balance that comes about by way of, everybody's winning. Everybody is human. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody is perfect. Everybody has something to offer. So 5 is that moment that really reduces us back to the fact that we're all as valuable. We are all part of creation, and without one another, we are not going to help the world function as well as we can. 5 therefore can be or can flag the need to persist. It can flag the need to be tolerant, patient, forgiving. That doesn't mean ignore things. It means, whatever you've got to do, do it. But understand that you're being asked to do this with a degree of flexibility, of understanding, of compassion. And 2025, yeah, can be a time when we are asked to become more empathetic, yeah, or maybe not more empathetic, but just to channel that aspect of ourselves in a way that we're more aware of, or we're doing it to a greater degree. We're being asked to do it to a greater degree simply because of all the hot pokers or the busyness that we're in amongst. So the point of this video is really just to say to you, hey, if you've been feeling like 2025 has been one hell of a boot campy year, you are on track. You're doing really well. If you've been feeling like 1 minute you got it and the next minute you lost it, 1 minute you're getting control back into your life, whether it's called control, whether it's just, grounding, yeah, a sense of it's okay, yeah, to the degree that that's been hit and missed this year. I got it and then all of a sudden I lose it again. 5 can be a time where, experience happens in a way that stretches you and becomes sort of all-consuming, knocks you sort of off center, makes you feel a bit wobbly. And then all of a sudden you start to get your traction back. You start to feel more confident. Oh my goodness, okay, I'm getting the hang of this now. And just as you're doing that, the 5 period will whip it away from you again from another angle. Yeah. And it's not because you're failing. Life is never about failing, even though it can feel like it at certain points. But you see, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because on one level, there is no problem to get down about. That's big words. But you see, really, it's not the problem that's the issue. It's how we then move to address it. So no problem needs to be seen as a negative. No challenge needs to be seen as a negative, even if it is completely uncomfortable or completely, I don't know what the word is, undesirable, unattractive, unwanted. Yeah. So 2025 is here on one level to breed discomfort so as to get us to stretch into our next level of comfort as conscious, spiritual, and therefore spiritually manifesting beings. I hope this video has sort of helped to place this time of this year and the earlier periods a little bit better for you. Please get in contact if you want to hear more about it, whether that's generically or even for you as a result of your personal chart, or whether you want help on an energetic, intuitive or spiritual level from another angle. Take good care, move through to part 2 of this month's observations about August. And thanks for tuning in. Travel well.